I take back everything that I possibly said, because it looks like Koss really knew what he was doing and waiting for this critical amount of forces to move in. Is going to be able to take down, even the SCVs are attacking at this point. Would rather see them throw down some bunkers outside of the base, because they're not going to do that much damage, or possibly heal. All the tanks are pretty much healed at this point. Auto repair isn't on. The SCVs are just running in, taking tank fire right now from MorroW. Koss right now going to be pushing in, and MorroW going to be throwing down a few bunkers of his own. I think the SCVs should do the same if he wants to try to hold off on this front. Going to be moving on the choke, throwing down something, and moving his units ahead. The tanks actually can barely get that once they're up on the ramp. MorroW trying to retreat at this point, so Koss now just streaming more units out across the map. I thought that was a slide depot. It's not. It's some sort of old mule that died eons ago on Blistering Sands that will always be there as a fossil. And now the tanks are being moved in. They can go up on the ramp, and they will start blasting away at everything. MorroW now in trouble, and Koss definitely pushing in with these tanks. They are choking off the rest of the forces, so Koss should possibly think about moving one or two of them. Meanwhile, MorroW is trying his very best. Should lift off this. No, he's not going to lift off, because it's pumping out that all too important Marauder. Barracks is coming out as a scout right now, and more tanks coming out for MorroW. Koss in a very good position right now. He can slowly push up his tanks. Every supply depot is going, every bunker is going down for MorroW, and the tanks are there. Are they within range of each other? Yes, they are. MorroW has to get that one out, and barely survives with 3 hit points. The SCVs are coming in to repair. MorroW not choosing to lift off his rafts. Now he is, because, you know, he's just suffering way too much damage at this point. Where another tank is coming in for Koss at this point, and I don't know what's going on over here. I don't think anything's really affected. Looking at the economy, pretty high for both players at this point, and Koss just blasting away at the front of MorroW's base. MorroW has been able to get out a few siege tanks of his own, so it looks like the tank lines are going to hold down. Now, this barracks will actually provide a higher scout, a further scout for MorroW, so he can push ahead, as Koss doesn't currently have any sort of air attack, so he would get outranged by the tanks, unfortunately, if he has run out of scans. And now MorroW is going to be reestablishing himself. Koss using this time does see this SCV is freaking out here. Should take that out, and not just going to let him watch. The SCV actually can only see it every once every half second, because it is like that. Koss now going to be setting up a tank line, and MorroW going to be scouting it out with his supply depot. This lone marine probably not going to take it out for quite some time. Just going to start blasting away at it very, very, very slowly. And the tanks are able to see that far. Unfortunately for Koss, overextending himself just a little bit, loses a Marauder there. Looking at the army count, MorroW has just done an incredible job holding off that tank push. He was way behind in units, and still is able to kind of catch up a little bit. Looking at the unit count, has pretty much caught up in almost everything, and is ahead in his supply count. I'm curious if I don't think anything happened here. Everything looks fine and dandy on the whole miss of MorroW, but I think he was just so focused on pumping out units and try to micro everything going on here. And now going to be breaking down the back door of MorroW, making it that much harder for him to defend against both fronts. But the barracks will see what's going to happen. Looking at the units lost at, MorroW has lost a significant number more units, 64 over 43, and looking at the resources as well. So any advantage he had at mining away on the early resources is now completely squared away, as his opponent has established his expansion and is now starting to saturate his natural. Koss doing a good job keeping the pressure going. I don't think he really wanted to engage too much, but keeps wanting to test the front door or back door. And MorroW just constantly scouting, kind of has an eye on where his opponent is. Koss wants to take attention away from the fact that he is saturating right now. And looking at the unit, the army count, while MorroW still, I mean, just going to pull ahead. This barracks providing a huge amount of information to him. He knows that his opponent is sieged out here, not really going to move, so he feels very comfortable in taking this command center and now moving and distributing his forces out across with it as well. Can this be on patrol? It can. You can actually patrol a floating barracks, which is really cool, I think, in my opinion. And now going to be getting a sensor tower, so that if this barracks does go down for whatever reason, he can kind of get a sense of where his opponent is as well. So any sort of economic advantage that Koss thinks that he has is quickly going to be knocked back or even out, equilibriized evened out. I'm sorry, all these words are not coming out correctly for me. A cool triangle pattern from MorroW. That's kind of neat. I like that. He likes those shapes and freaking out his SCV, which died a long time ago, unfortunately, right here. Koss at this point not really being too aggressive, as there are multiple tank lines being thrown down, and I think really needs to get some sort of more sight into the air. He's going strictly Marauder tanks, and looking at the production, MorroW is going to go with the Banshees in retaliation. Not good for Koss, as his only anti-air at this point is a lone Marine out here. And tanks are being dropped. Koss does see that what's going on in the backside, and is going to start blasting away down here as well, using his medevacs to not dropping these units. Should be dropping, but does see a tank there, so possibly not going to drop just yet, but wants to get rid of everything that he can. Has to be very careful, of course, of the range from MorroW's tanks as well. And so a little bit of a standoff going on right now. And MorroW is going to be going with the Banshees, waiting for the cloak to finish and waiting for him to mass a few more Banshees as well. Throwing down missile turrets around his base, as he does fear the Banshees coming in as well. Is mined out of his main, and this is his only... Oh wow, did a drop. I'm sorry, I missed that as I was trying to pay attention. Dropped down some Marines back here and was able to take out those tanks, probably dropping right on top of them. And now going to be scouting and running across with this Marauder. Meanwhile, Koss, I think, temporarily a little bit scared that there might be a whole bunch of units coming up from behind. Koss right now not looking so great with all the... I mean, the Marauders are great against the tanks and can really rush in. Possibly has a window right now where he could probably rush in and do a ton of damage, but unfortunately, once these Banshees come out with the cloak, it's going to be that much more difficult for him to hold his ground. And is he going to build a missile turret? Here come the Banshees. Koss, I think right now is like, holy crap, why do I have no Marines? Missile turrets are finally going down, of course, but one tank goes down, two tanks goes down, and I think he has to push in at this point, or massively retreat and bulk up his anti-air. He's just going to lose too many units right now if he stays here, and unfortunately, yeah, it looks like I don't know what Koss is doing. He's going to run in at this point, realizes that he absolutely has to. Will take a lot of tank fire, of course. Is running with an A attack, and just going to 1, 2, 3. And MorroW actually catches MorroW off guard, so this could be very good for Koss right now if he can do significant amounts of damage to the tanks. Really has to before all these Banshees start whacking away at his Marauders, and unfortunately for him, just caught a little bit off guard. Meanwhile, all the while setting up an expansion, although all his forces are getting wiped out right now. 127 over. Finally, some Vikings have come in for reinforcements, but now that the Marauders are on the ground as well. Oh, so great game. GG from Koss. Great game from MorroW. Holding his cool. He had 4 tanks up onto top of his ramp, but was able to drive them off. And unfortunately for Koss, holding out in the middle, a lot of great kind of patrolling with this barracks, as this is the hero barracks of the game, that gave MorroW constant sight on his opponent. So great game from both players. MorroW wins yet again. I was mistaken. He played in the Go4SC. He played last Sunday. And won this, last Wednesday, and won again this Wednesday. So almost basically two attempts in a row for him, I think. So great game from both players. This has been JCS StarCraft, and I'm signing off.